Today is a long awaited episode, and I just trusted the divine timing when to bring this guest back on. Rob Murgatroyd did something that most people only dream of, and him and his family decided to pursue that dream on their heart and move to Italy, which sounds so extravagant. And people say, if I won the lotto, that's what I would do. But he actually did it. And doing the thing and then what ends up happening on the other side is always interesting. And I was kind of looking at it like we need to do like a pre manifestation, right? Like a precursor of the work that went involved, the mindset stuff that was involved in making this happen and helping co-create this in happening. But what's the reality on the other side? If you're tired of hearing the same old basic mindset and motivational fluff talk, you've come to the right show. Welcome to ProjectME with Tiffany Carter, the podcast, where we dish on everything from managing that crazy brain of yours to manifesting abundance to my straightforward, actionable steps that will make you major money online. Now, I'm not your typical multimillionaire entrepreneur. It takes a small village to keep my anxiety and depression in check. I'm inherently disorganized with an intense obsession with office supplies. Your girl here is a digital marketing content expert who's generated over $200 million in sales. I promise by tuning in twice a week, you will get a much needed refreshing dose of truth, clarity, and cash-making advice. Now let's get to it. Before we continue, are you tired of spinning your wheels in your business, getting very little traction and growing more frustrated by the day, getting paralyzed with information overload, and just want someone to tell you what to prioritize, what to focus on with your limited time and energy? I know, because I was once there, and I'm a fellow overthinker, overanalyzer, and highly ambitious person just like you. We have an August flash bonus sale going on inside my famous ProjectME Posse business coaching membership, where you get my $297 content creation made easy course bundle for free when you join today as a new member. There are only a handful of new member spots left because people literally don't leave the posse, and I keep it capped at an intimate size so that you get that true group coaching experience with live weekly Q&As, live weekly trainings from me and other special guest experts, plus a membership portal of hundreds of prior live trainings, everything designed for you to go from zero to $15,000 consistent months in your business is right here available for you for $3.33 a day, by the way. Go to projectmewithtiffany.com/ProjectMe Posse, or you can swipe up and that link is in my show notes. It's also in the link in my bio on Instagram and TikTok at ProjectMeWithTiffany. Hurry up, get in there. And if you go to the page and it says it's closed, that's because all the new membership spots are gone. So you can come back every day and refresh the page and see if there's a new membership spot available. Hurry up, and I can't wait to see you in there. What up, my people, my posse, my fellow crazies? It's your host, Tiffany Carter, and this is the show that is going to help you grow your business, your bank account, that big, beautiful brain of yours, your abundance, your relationships, and everything in between. So I looked up in our episode, and I'm going to link it in the show notes. You have to listen to part one. Like, if you don't, I really don't know what to do with you. It's actually one of our, I don't know if you know this, Rob, it's one of our most downloaded to date guest interviews. Rob's like, I'm very charming.
No, that's crazy. I have to tell you, you and I texted back and forth on this. There's a few podcasts that I have done that you just never really know. You know, sometimes it just lands. That podcast, I remember right after I did that podcast with you, I must have been in the airport. And I remember my wife going, "Why are you looking at your phone so much?" I'm like, "You have no idea how many messages I am getting from Tiffany's audience asking questions." That one really resonated.
Oh, I listened to it again this morning when Rob got the time zone configuration wrong. And I was listening.
It's so hard.
It is. Listen. I don't do math well. Like we're not. Like you guys need to know this. Rob and I are not the brightest people. Okay.
No.
You do not need to be incredibly smart in order to have great things happen in your life. So this is episode number 296. It's from April 7th, 2021 for reference. So let's set the stage for people. How long have you now been in Italy?
Just shy of 2 years.
Okay. And you guys can follow along on all of what it's really like to be there, which is really a smart move, especially even if it's not Italy you want to go to, but somewhere where you can see someone living out a version of what you want. So all of his socials and everything will be in the show notes, but I was extra invested, of course, and I was laughing my ass off when you guys were first there because you're a fellow Virgo. We're psychotic, just
nuts, crazy.
We're nuts. Like we give Kim, your wife, there's no one else who could put up with you. Like I've been engaged 3 times. There's very few people that could stop with me.
Do you throw stuff away and clean people's stuff?
I'm insane. Yes, we have problems. Like, yes. And if you have a little bit left, like in a drink or in a soda or a Pellegrino, it's gone. Like if it's sat there past a certain time, like this has no right. We're done. It's out. And then everyone's like, oh, what happened to my wine glass? Where's my glass? It's already been cleaned. It's out.
So true.
So this is the part that I was dying over because I get this and we want to hold on to our routines, right? We're so routine focused, especially as those of us who were like raised in America. And Rob's really into fitness. If you don't know Rob, like your former career is as a very successful chiropractor. You're super into health. His identity gets stolen regularly because he looks like you just look rich. Let's call it like it is. You do.
Oh, thank you.
You look like someone who has a yacht. You just do. And I get why your identity gets regularly stolen because it's like he's like the ideal catfish face. You really are. Like it never surprises me.
It's so funny.
So when you were going around Italy, you were still wanting to establish like your routine and he was trying to find a gym. Now, those of us if you've like spent time in Europe and all my European listeners, this is not a vibe there. And it's like for geriatrics, isn't it?
It's the weirdest thing. I remember, so I first went there to the gym and I said, hey, I want to join the gym. Now, if you go to LA Fitness or whatever, you go to the gym, they're like, okay, it's $50 a month. You pay the thing and you work out. And so she said, okay, yep, no problem. And I have my gym bag with me. And she said, well, you can't work out today. And I was like, oh, are you closed? And she said, no. You have to go to a doctor. I said, I have to go to a doctor for what? She goes, you need to get a physical. I said, a physical for what? She said, for the gym. I said, but aren't the healthy people in the gym? Like, why? She goes, oh, no, something can happen. You have to go. And I was like, okay. She said, but don't worry, I'll make an appointment for you. I said, okay, great. Makes the appointment. She says, I got one for you in 6 weeks. I said, 6 weeks? What do I do between now and then? She said, we just maybe you could jog outside in the street. Go to the gym, go to the doctor 6 weeks later. And the nurse says, oh, how old are you? And I said, I'm 55 at the time. And she said, oh, we don't do anybody here. It's between 30 and 40. You have to go there. But I can call that doctor and make an appointment for you. Okay, great. 4 more weeks. Okay, so now it's 2.5 months. Then I get into the gym. The guy's got a cigarette in his mouth. Who's watching? He's got the towel around his neck. Okay. He's got the cigarette in his mouth, and I'm running on the machine. And he comes over and he says, "Oh, easy, you're gonna break it." And I said, "Break what?" He said, "You can't. I don't think it's designed to go that fast."
Oh my God.
It's a treadmill. So yes, it's been very interesting living here.
Because often we can go into something that I call fantasy channel, which is not a bad thing when you're creating the life that you want to live, to really allow yourself to sink into ideally what you want. But then once we get what we want, whether it's money, success, the relationship, moving, the car, whatever, then the reality sets in, right? There's still the magic, but then there's the reality. How was that transition? Was it like, did you guys have moments where it's like, what the hell did we do? Or was it blissful as soon as you landed?
It's a really good question, and it's a slightly complicated answer. And I think probably the best way I can answer it is when you're willing to take the risk to step into the unknown. And as us Virgos are, that is not in our wheelhouse to do. But fortunately enough for us, we're probably going to be in a relationship with somebody who isn't a Virgo. And if you don't kill each other, they will generally force you out of that Virgo-ness. And my wife was that for me. And so I came here and I knew this was one of those things where it's kind of like when I did my first fitness competition, I knew it was going to fucking suck. I knew I was going to be eating grilled chicken, broccoli, working out. And I just said, I am not going to complain about it. I'm just going to do it. I have this goal. I want to blah, blah, blah. And I kind of went into moving to Italy in the same way. A friend of mine gave me great advice. And he said to me, I'm going to save your life. Don't ask why. Don't ask why for anything. Like anything. When you go to the gym and they're like 6 weeks, don't ask why. Okay. And I was like, okay, got it. That really helped me. So when I got here, instead of complaining that the Wi-Fi wasn't fast enough, the air conditioning wasn't cold enough, the king size bed didn't exist, and I had to like get a double bed where I fell through the fucking middle of the thing because I don't know why in this country they can't have a king size.
No, they're
bed.
not at hotels either.
It doesn't exist. I have no idea why it doesn't exist, but it doesn't exist. Okay. So I can give you 1,000 of those, but all of those things were issues. But what I did not plan on was the unknown that the universe provided for me. Okay. I did not plan on things like community. We have a community of friends, not like this, not like when, somebody says, hey, can we meet for coffee? And I say, yeah, I'll be there in 10 minutes. And I walk outside my door and have coffee, as opposed to being in LA where I'm like, let me open my book. I could do it on the 13th at 4:00. Yeah, but I got a hard out. There's no fucking hard out here. That doesn't exist. Okay. You're having wine at lunch. You're having 3-hour dinners and you're having them with 20 people. You are not discussing business and you are deep into the community. They are your biggest champion. They love you. They kiss you. They hug you. You are a part of their life. They want to know what's going on. They want to talk to my daughter, Sophia. They want to. So I did not plan on the level of community. And I know it sounds crazy because Italy has great food, but I didn't realize the orgasmicness of eating here. I never tasted food. It literally is unfreaking believable. So there's like a bunch of those things that were just washed over me in a way that I was like, oh my, I was like, when you're in a routine, as Virgos can be, where you can drive somewhere and you don't even remember driving there.
Totally
right?
Dissociated. Yeah.
Just totally dissociated. Right. It was like when I got here, everything was in slow motion. Everything was the exact opposite because it was all new. Like right now, I have church bells that are ringing to tell me that it's 15 minutes to the hour. Right. But that was new to me. Walking on the streets are not streets, they're cobblestones. The streets are not designed where it's barely enough for cars because the city is 2,000 years old. The building, when you come into my building, the door is like 25 feet because they came into the building with horses holding a torch with fire. I'm literally everything. And I'll ask somebody what's that metal thing outside our building? They're like, oh, well, that's where you put your horse. All of these things that were all new to me. When probably, I'd say about a year later, people who we both know, I don't want to mention now, some friends of mine had a party and they said, hey, it's my friend's birthday. My friend reached out to me and said, hey, I want to do my 50th birthday and I want to do it in Sicily. So a lot of my friends from LA were all mutual friends, said, okay, well, let's fly out. So we stayed at the TV show White Lotus. We stayed at the White Lotus place. And did you watch it, the second season?
Yes, absolutely. I loved it.
Okay. So you like where she played the piano, like that thing?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're sitting in that piano area and we'd sit there every night. And it's a bunch of podcasters and authors and shit like that. So we're always asking each other constant questions. And so we played a game one night and we all went around and we asked each other our favorite podcast question. And you got to choose who you wanted to ask. So one of the guys said to me, he said, why don't you play bigger? And I remember I instantly shrunk. I felt inadequate. And I hadn't felt that since I was in LA, where I never felt like my house was big enough. I never felt like my car was car enough. I never felt like I had enough cash in the bank. Every time I went to a friend's house, if it was in Beverly Hills or whatever, I always felt like everybody, and I was constantly trying to find a way to make more money to fill whatever this void was inside of me, because I always felt behind. But I forgot living here that I hadn't felt that in a year and a half. And it wasn't until LA came to Italy that I felt it. And I felt like depressed that night. And I woke up the next morning and I went, fuck you, not playing big enough. I just moved my fucking family across the ocean for a better life, a better quality of life, because it meant something to us. This mattered to me. For you, what you're saying is play bigger is make more money. That's code for make more money. I know
Totally.
what he was
I
saying.
agree.
So it was in that moment where everything snapped back for me. And I went, okay, that was what I needed to hear. I needed to hear that my life is not all money. My life is my life. It's all the, yes, I got to make money. Somebody's got to buy these clothes. I understand it, but it's not just that. It's investing in all the other areas of your life, relationship, your body, your time with your hobbies or whatever. It's not just money, 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 money.
Yeah. And I always say the people who can say it's not just money are either people who are broke and have never had money, or people who have had money and been around money and know the difference, right? And you and I both know what the difference is. And it's not enough and it's not all that there is, but I know what the listener's thinking. Well, yeah, Rob, you have to have some kind of money to have made this extravagant move. And people let that money thing block them from going after the life that they want, because they convince themselves they have to have something they don't have. One of them is money or time or it's circumstances. It's usually logistical, isn't it? When you are coaching people on doing these incredible like shifts in their life, isn't that what comes up? But I don't have this, but I believe I need to have this in order to do that. But what about that?
Yeah, the problem is that it's an arbitrary goal. It's not that you don't need money. I'm not saying that, you're right. The starving artist is always the one that says that you don't need money because they don't have any, and they've just decided that they're going to just live with the fact that they're broke and they're going to, paint or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when they've done research on this, it's really fascinating. They've done research within companies, and when they ask people from the lowest brand new entry associate to the C-suite what their financial goal is, The answer is always the same. It's 3 times whatever they're currently making. So if they're making $50,000, they want 150. The problem is that if I tell you the marathon is 26.2 miles, and then in the last minute I change the rules on you and I triple it, you never feel like you can win the game. So once you say I want $100,000, then it turns into 3 because you hit it. And it just keeps going. You and I know a ton of people where it doesn't stop. So what does that mean? That means you figure out what that number is. Like I sat down and I did this with my friend, Chris Harder, and we sat down and I figured out 2 numbers. I figured out what my current expenses were, which were way more expensive, way higher than I thought they were, and what my dream life expenses were. Okay. And it was way less than I thought it was. So I sat down with him and we went through these numbers, and I forget what the exact number was, but it was something like I was spending 300 grand a year on everything, living in LA. Right. And then he said, okay, well, what do you really want? I said, well, I'd love to have a villa in Tuscany. I'd love to have an apartment in the city. He's like, keep dreaming. How much a week do you want to spend going out to dinner? And I'm like, I don't know. In LA, it's always like $200 every time I go. He's like, would $1,000 a week be enough? I'm like, sure, that'd be more than enough. So we just blew it out, savings, everything. I couldn't spend more than $600,000. When I really looked at what the dream was, it was 600. Then what was really interesting to me was when we moved to Italy, everything is so much cheaper here. So instead of having the $200 Mexican food with the margarita, that everything was like shitty Mexican, and having like unbelievable Italian with a great bottle of wine from Chianti or whatever, and it was like $60. So the dream life that we calculated was so much less. Now, here's the challenge. When you hit the goal, the dream life goal number that you want for your income, if you're still incessantly driving for more, then you got a different problem. Your problem is you can't figure out what you need, and you're just working the work.
I really hope you guys are letting this sink in. It's easy for people who have not yet reached a certain level of wealth where there are more options to go, well, yeah, but I'm at like $3,000 a month. I want this, I want that. So we hear you on that. But at a certain point, keep moving the needle. People do it in fitness, as you've seen, right? It's
doesn't stop.
I've won this competition. Well, that's not enough. Or how long can I sustain it? And I literally straight up, I'm very open about this, 8.5 years ago went to off myself because of this.
Yeah.
It's like I had the $1 million in the bank, then 2 million, and then that wasn't enough, and then that wasn't enough, and then the walls started closing in on me, and it was that I was so focused on having my level of serenity and joy be based on external factors, and like you said, those keep moving, and it's never enough. And how could you ever possibly get to a place of even being content when you're always chasing after something? How exhausting. I know I lived it. I mean, I know you lived it.
It's exhausting. So like I actually defined it. When is enough enough? It's enough when it erodes the bandwidth, when work erodes the bandwidth for a great life. Enough is enough when work erodes the bandwidth for a great life. So if you've established this life where you go, I want to spend this much time with my kids, I want to spend this much time with my spouse, I want to spend this much time traveling, you've carved out what that life looks like. When work erodes that life, it's too much. Then you've got to figure out a way to do it. And I'll tell you, you and I both know this. Once you hit that $200,000 goal, $300,000, what happens? The house gets bigger, the cars get bigger. Well, then what do you have to do? You got to go to work harder to pay for the fucking Ferrari, right? And so you started with the Mazda Miata, and then you went into the Land Rover, and then you get the Ferrari, and then you get the Rolls, and now you need the private jet. So could you have it? Yeah, you can have it. You can do it. You're going to pay a price for it. You're going to pay a price of your time, which is your life. So define in advance how much of your time you want to spend burning up the bandwidth to make that money to live that life. I'm not saying you can't have it. I'm just saying you're gonna pay a price for it.
Was there part of you, because this required a big full body shift within yourself. Was there a part of you that was like, God, like living this life in Italy, and I'm taking my foot off the gas? I'm sure it's what it felt like. I'm taking my foot off the gas from working out, even from everything. I'm taking my foot off the gas. I'm don't have my phone out at these 3-hour dinners. I'm was there a part of you that went into some scarcity thinking like, Kim, how are we gonna bring in cash here? I mean, this is
It's
wow.
twofold. It's twofold. We are, I believe there's nature, nurture, and neighborhood. So your nature is like, I can't kind of change how I am. This is how I am, right? Your nurture is how your parents raised you. You can't really change that either. But people give little consideration to their neighborhood's impact on them. For example, you're in Manhattan Beach now. I can see that striking blue ocean behind you. You are a different person by being in that sunshine on that sand, surrounded by those palm trees. And what is the name of that restaurant right in the corner there? I know the name of that restaurant. What's the name of that spot? I know it. What's it called?
Well, it depends which corner. I'm in El Porto, so.
Oh, you're in El Porto. Okay, yeah. I know El Porto. Well, listen,
because you like surfing. I like the El Porto vibe. It's more chill. Right. It's less Ferrari vibes.
Absolutely. I surfed right there at El Porto and had lunch at the El Porto Mexican restaurant. I love that area. You are a different person being in that area, and I'm a different person here. So guess what happens? When nobody gives a shit what car you drive, when nobody gives a shit about talking about business, when the only thing they care about is talking about fucking olive oil, gelato, and wine ad nauseum, you slip into a different pace, a different vibe, and you don't feel the inadequacy of not measuring up. So you go, okay, I need 250,000 to live here like a king. What do I have to do that? How much money? How do I make the 250? And then basta, the word in Italian, basta is enough. Then enough. You figured it out, enough.
I like that rhymes with pasta.
It's really, well, they actually say it. They say basta the pasta.
What would give me anxiety, and I'm just channeling my audience listening, about doing something this kind of a big life change. And in this case, right, it's this move, or some people want to leave their job, start a business, or now, be able to travel all over the world while running their business, or even write a book, which I know that you are writing, which is really exciting. I've been waiting for that. And you guys will see when you listen to episode 296, you can swipe up, it's in the show notes. You'll see why Rob was meant to be a writer. His writing in a couple paragraphs moved me to tears. It's really, really incredible and a super powerful manifestation exercise. By the way, if you are loving this episode, take a screenshot right now, share it with someone you love, someone who has a dream on their heart, someone who you talk to about, oh, if I won the lotto, I would do this. That person, share it to your audience. Tag me at ProjectME with Tiffany, tag Rob at Rob Murgatroyd, and I will make sure that I share this. Now that came out of my mouth about the lotto, God, this could be a whole separate episode about the lotto. It really irritates me. But you did ask a question in the pre-move, the pre-Italy, Rob, of you had a coach of yours that asked you, if you have 2 years left to live, what would you do? Like if you're torn about starting the book, the podcast, whatever it is, getting a divorce, I don't care. Me asking, my decision on getting a second house came literally from that episode. It planted that seed. So I'm hoping we're doing that for you today. But that lotto question, because what that's really saying is, I can only have this beautiful Italian life. I can only travel the world. I can only do this if I had some obscene amount of money come my way where I didn't have to work at all for it. And then I could do it. And it's like now you're putting the control. What are the odds? It's like one in billions that you would win. Now you're putting your entire life on the line for, oh, well, I would do what Rob and Kim did, but only if I won the $1.2 billion lotto.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's all bullshit. So it is a very convenient excuse to argue for your limitations and say, yeah, I would do it if I had the cash. It's not true. Once you make a decision, it might not be tomorrow, it might be in a year, it might be 3 years, but I guarantee you that if you pull a whiteboard out and you say, I will be living the life of my dreams in Italy on this day, and you get really clear on what that looks like, and then you start reverse engineering what you need to do that, you can absolutely do it, because it's a story that you're telling yourself of why you can't have it. And you know in your heart that you can change your circumstances tomorrow if you're committed. But look, here's the thing. You got to want it, right? I had a guy, ironically, in Manhattan Beach, Chris Goodman. He's got a great podcast. He just changed his name, Bourbon and something. You can Google it you can put it in the show notes, Chris Goodman. And I was really stuck. I mean, I told you this in the last podcast, like we're sitting there and I'm like, do I move? Do I leave LA and do I move to Italy? I love LA. I love the sunshine. I miss it. I'm looking at it right now. I miss it. Right. But I love pasta. I love gelato. I love the La Dolce Vita. Like they're both a 10. And he just said, okay, I get it. So if you had 2 years left to live, where would you live? And it was instantaneous. It was like instantaneous. And I went Italy. I was so clear that's where I was meant to be. And sometimes you just need somebody to ask a different question.
Why do you think it is, and all the people you've coached and all these long, beautiful conversations you've had with people all over the world, why do you think it is that people will want, they'll wish, and they'll hope for something, and they really say they want it, and you're talking to them and you can be coaching them and you know they're serious, they really want to do whatever this thing is or call whatever it is into their life, and yet the disconnect from the wanting, the yearning, even if it's a deep desire, to the actual doing and showing up for it is gone. And in literally, in my opinion of coaching over 150,000 people, I'd say 98% of people don't do it.
Yeah, because they don't want it. So
even though they really believe they want it, like they're screaming right now while listening to this episode saying, no, Rob, like I really want this. You don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah. If they value health, they walk outside and they go walking, they go to the gym. If they value their relationship, they speak kindly to their spouse. There's evidence, there's some form of evidence. There's a breadcrumb trail that shows that their behavior and their actions are consistent with what they're saying they value. So if somebody's saying, as an example, I want to move to Italy, but I can't, you don't want it. Because if you wanted it, you would be asking different questions like, how could I get it? What could I do remotely? How does it work to get a visa? How much money would it? You're asking different questions and you're behaving differently. So if you're telling me you want something and you don't have it in your life, you're lying. You're just not telling the truth. Now, why are you lying? You're lying because you feel the pressure of feeling like you should have this. I should have the bigger house. I should be driving a Ferrari. You will never get your shoulds. As Tony Robbins says, you will should all over yourself. It's not going to happen. You're going to get the thing that you value, but you're not going to get the thing that you should. So my advice is get honest. What do you really fucking want? What is the thing that you really want in your life that you're taking action on it? If there's no evidence, there's no trail, there's no action, there's no questioning, you don't want it. It's a should. You think you should. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. It makes sense to me. I think that just really hit a lot of people in between their eyes. And it's not to shame you. So don't go taking out a shame stick and beating yourself up over this. This is to wake you up so that you can actually like deal with the reality of it so you can start making things move and get closer to experiencing the joy that you deserve to experience. A lot of people will say, I don't know where to start. There's no way you don't get a ton of messages like this. I don't know where to start. I don't even know where to begin. I want to move to Greece. My dream is to live in Paris. Da, 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 da. I want to have a podcast like you, Rob, but I don't even know where to start. And then they keep telling themselves that, and like months go by, even years go by. I don't know where to start. And they really believe this. Like, people get really mad when I talk about this. It's like, well, if you don't know where to start, maybe like Google, where do I start if I'm interested in moving to Paris? Like, why do you think that comes in for people? And then they just get stuck on that loop. Is it just an excuse so that they don't need to do the thing?
I think no, in that case, I think it's the exact opposite. I think that's a strategy issue because they feel overwhelmed and they're overchunked. They're looking at your success as a podcaster, and there's a gap between, let's use podcasting as an example. There's a gap between, they listen to your podcast and they go, Tiffany's amazing at this. They have a taste for what it sounds like to be a great interviewer, to do all these things that you're doing, like take a screenshot of this and tag me. And they're like, oh shit, I don't even know what questions to ask. And Tiffany's promoting the episode in the middle of the episode, right? And so they have this taste for how good it is. And then they look at where they are and they're right here. And there's this giant gap between what they have a taste for and their skill set, right? Okay. So what do? Well, I think you think about it, and I think let's take an example this way. 100,000 foot view, 1,000 foot view. What most people do when they have an idea for something is they try and get down to the granular level of tell me exactly what the steps are, the small steps. Let's use the example of moving to Italy. When I read to you in the last podcast, the vision I had, I started super high level. When I first started, it was like, I see myself walking on cobblestone streets. It's all I had. I didn't have any more than that. I thought it was Florence. It felt like Florence. I knew it was Italy, but I didn't have much more than that. Feels good. And so over months, I started to take this 100,000 foot view, and then it started to get to like 50,000. And then it was like Florence. I have a terrace with sweeping views of the city, the reason that I came to the city, right? I got blah, blah, blah. And then it got granular. And then it was, oh, I got to hire a lawyer and I have to figure out how to get a visa. So you can't know you need the lawyer and the visa when you're in the dreaming stage, when you're in the idea stage. And if you have an idea for a podcast, as an example, start dreaming. Who would I love to talk to? Start there and then go lower and then go lower. The lower, when you're overwhelmed and you don't know where to start, you can't go low. You got to go high. It's too overwhelming. You don't even know what to ask. You don't know what you don't know. Stay in the dream stage when you're feeling it and you're like, oh, I'm walking down the streets. I got church bells. I'm walking outside my building, taking my daughter to the school bus, and my wife and I are going to Chibreo to have coffee in the morning. Like when you're granular like that, then it's like, now it's time to call the lawyer because now you're clear. So like be where you are. If you're in the beginning stage, go high. If you're feeling it, you're starting to get clear, then go low.
What happened when you guys moved there that has surprised you the most? Because you've traveled a lot. So, and you have friends that have done it. And I'm sure knowing you, you did a ton of research. So some of the things were expected, some were unexpected, but like what changed the most within you that you did not expect that was like, oh my God, I would have done this years sooner if I knew this was waiting for me?
That when you're in a place that is 3,000 years old and you come to this place from a country that is 200 years old. There is wisdom that is in the air, that is palpable. You feel it. A few years ago, tanks going through the streets right outside my window for World War II, World War I. They've been through the bubonic plague. They've been through invasions. What that's taught me is that this new country that we're from, America, we don't understand what it is to be human, to understand that it can be gone tomorrow, to understand, to embrace the things in life that really matter, your family and food and history and art and culture and respect for old people. Like, you don't, like, these are things you read about, but when you're here and you see the respect that people have for an elderly woman, and the respect that she has at 90 years old in heels and lipstick and with a cigarette and flirting with me, didn't expect to feel that, to feel all of the weight of what that feels like, and to get lost in the tapestry of life from the history in which I live. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You know what I noticed, and I don't know when the last time as you listen to that interview, but I think it'd be interesting for you to listen to hear yourself before. But part of your vision was that you guys would regularly come back and forth, even come and spend months where I'm living right now. And I think I remember you guys, like, you came back to visit family, but my guess is there's a reason why your vision and how you're living has changed. So what culture shock happened for you when you came back to the US?
Oh, you're good. You're good. You're good. Tiffany, I'm so careful with this conversation because it can come across, not with you, with me coming across
like anti-American.
But
I make fun of, I mean, listen, the pumpkin spice people have invaded. Don't come back here right now. They've invaded. They're here in August. I'm not joking. This is terrible. Americans are, we're wild and narcissistic. Please tell us what happened upon return.
Well, it was okay. So I'll give you an example. And by the way, I'm flying next week to New York. So it's going to happen again. I'm going to Boston, New York. But so I guess we were here for like about a year, and it just started like dropping into the culture, and it's like anything else. You don't realize it. It just becomes a part of your life. And so we fly home, we go to Boston, and we go out to a restaurant in the north end of Boston. And I sit down, and the waitress, she's got the computer thing, and she's like, "Hi, my name is Tiffany, and I'm going to be your waitress," and blah, blah, blah. And what would you like? And so we ordered the food that we want, and she didn't really know what it was because she was like some high school kid that was like working there part-time. She didn't really understand it. And we got the salad, and the salad was like covered in this like vinaigrette, but it was like candy. It was like cranberry sugar. It was literally like, there was so much sugar, and it was like crunchy, like literally it was gelatinous, right? And then we ordered the pasta, and it was horrible. And then I ordered the bottle of wine that I order here, and it's maybe $50 here. It was $350 for the same bottle there. And then I got the bill, right? We had another couple with us, and it was $450 for dinner. Okay. That $450 dinner would have been maybe $100, maybe $110 for the people that we had. And the quality would have been 1,000 times better. And then I get on the end of it, I see that there's a 20% tip that I got to put on it. And she puts a smiley face, and nobody tips here. And that was the hardest thing for me to get used to. And like, they literally will go out to dinner and leave €1. It's not what they do. You have waiters that are professional waiters that have been doing it for 60 years, and they will tell you we got this today from the market and this is how we're doing it. And it's amazing and you should get it. They value it. It matters to them. They chose to do this. They're into it. So that one restaurant experience, from the greeting with the computer to the tip that I had to tip her for the terrible experience, I was like, I can't fucking do this. Like, I can't do this. And it was 10 days of that kind of stuff. Then I couldn't believe how big everybody was. Like,
meaning
it was
like heavy set, like unhealthy.
Yeah. Yes. Like everybody here, it's so weird. Like, you don't realize it until you see it. They're like emaciated, thin. They're like 100 pounds. They're like so.
I always
thin.
am reminded when I stay somewhere and they give you the slippers, and like I never fit in the slippers. Like their feet are smaller.
It's so weird. They're like little midget people, you know? And so I'm like, God, it's so weird. So there was size, there was food, there was how big everything is. Like, the highways are big. And fast.
What
Like,
did that do to your nervous system where you had to have been so overly stimulated?
It's exactly what it was. It was overstimulation. And all of us in our family were like, we need to go home. We need to go back. And we hadn't been back since that time. And look, again, I don't want to sound anti-American, but I'm not super excited about going back. I found my spot. I found my home. And when you mentioned that we were going to go back and forth to California, well, we thought about it and we're like, the south of France is an hour flight. Do I want to fly 10 hours and have a 9-hour time change and spend 10 times the price? Or do I just want to go to the Greek islands or to Ibiza or to the south of France? And I'm there in an hour. Like, it was the stupidest thing in the world. Like, we just got back from a month in Greece. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. Does that answer it?
I feel that it has to happen, whether this is involving relationships, this is involving something in business. We have to get a taste sometimes to be reminded of what we don't want or what isn't for us anymore. And that's what happened, because all that did, right, was further reinforce how beautiful and wonderful of a decision that you guys made for yourselves.
I also think that, not to get too woo-woo on you, but I think there's a little like time hopping that goes on. Once you like make a decision that you're leaving this thing and you're going into the other thing, it's like you become in this, you're literally a different person. Like, you're not the same person. You look the same, you sound the same, but what you value, what excites you, what's important to you, what matters, all of that changes and you feel different. And then when you go back, you go, oh, I can't, like, I'm not that same person anymore. Like, okay, great example. The hardest thing that I had to get over is going out to dinner with people and not talking business and asking them what they do for a living.
That's so American.
It does not exist. And if you do, it's really
you're considered like gauche, as my mother would say.
By the way, you have to be very rich to use that word.
Exactly.
Yes.
She says it with her fake rich person accent too.
She's right. She's right. There is because what they want, I remember this is crazy. I was sitting there having dinner with my friend, the lawyer who helped us with the visa to get here. And I was talking about, how'd the day go? You have a lot of clients today? He's like, yeah, I was busy. And I'm like, any good cases? And he's like, yeah, there was a few. And like after the third or fourth one, he said, we don't talk about that. And I was like, oh, is that too personal? He's like, no, it's not personal, but we just don't do that. And I'm like, why? He's like, because work is work. We're escaping work so we can talk about life. We can have a glass of wine and we can talk about art and culture and food. But we're leaving. Like, we're working to make money to live. I don't want to sit here at dinner and talk to you about work. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to connect with you. And it was like, oh, got it. And the what's the word? There's no boundaries in the States with business. It's everywhere.
It's constant and relentless.
It's relentless. And to sit and have a conversation about life and what matters and culture and art and whatever just doesn't happen in the States. So now I have the exact opposite. I don't have this conversation ever with anybody unless I'm in a business setting. If I'm in a business setting, we'll talk about business. But even then, I got to do 7 coffees with them before they're willing to talk about it.
Wow.
Because they want to get to know you.
I can see whatever country someone is from, if you've been conditioned that in order to have success, in order to have the wealth, the life-changing cash, the options, the joy, you have to be productive. And all those sayings, the early bird catches the worm, eye on the prize, go all in, all of that stuff. And I feel it is very scary. And I have 2 coaches that like literally have to monitor me on this because I'm very aware of this within myself, where I can feel like when I call it luxuriating, right? I'm luxuriating, which I do as much as possible. Like I'll do it all the time. But I then start going in my head, Tiffany, you're going to lose everything. You're going to lose everything. What the fuck are you doing? You're going to lose everything. Don't get too used to just like floating around in the ocean, chilling, having your favorite salad, taking walks and daydreaming, maybe like shuffling some papers. Don't get too used to that because you can't keep doing that and be able to afford your life.
This doesn't happen here. They don't think about that at all. They think, how much money do they need to make? They set a plan for whatever even the entrepreneurs here in Italy. Okay, we're in the month of August right now. This city is a ghost town. There's nobody here. Why? Because they take the entire month of August off. They put little pieces of paper. Literally, they take a tablecloth, like a paper tablecloth at a local restaurant. They tear it off and they put the word Ferragosto. And Ferragosto it basically means August 15th, and it's the center of the middle of August, and it's the code word to let everybody know we're closing the restaurant for the month of August.
I'm putting the sign on the door after we get off, people.
Ferragosto. Okay, they're gone. They don't make apologies for it. They just take the time off. Now, what they have, this is what I was talking about earlier with the 3,000-year history. They have figured out that you can't work yourself to death because you will die, which is we're living. I don't want to get into politics, but we're living in America. Last year, there was something like 500 mass shootings, right? We're living in a place, there's 0 mass shootings here last year. 0, not 1.
Wow.
This is Tuesday in America. Why? Because there's a release valve. There's time off. I'm at the sea with my family. I'm drinking. We're dancing. We're having fun. The Greeks throw plates. They understand in Europe that you need the balance. You need the time off. We're not wired to be robotic, and this incessant, nonstop, relentless fear and anxiety about grinding to make more money is making us more isolated, more separated, more problematic within each other, and we're not any fucking happier
and more sick.
We're more sick. The Italians are living longer than anybody in the world. The Greeks, the Italians, they're number 1 and number 2. There's a reason. They figured out. So take the wisdom that these blue zone countries have and step into it. It's not nutrition. It's not at all. They fucking smoke relentlessly.
And their cigs are strong. Like when I have a bottle of wine and some pasta, I'm known to want a cig because I'm there. But I have one puff and I'm up all night. I mean, this shit's strong.
It's strong, right? So in spite of doing all the wrong things like that, they understand the balance. They know that walking means something. They know that community means something. They know that time off in the summer means something. They're not afraid. Like I was just in Greece. I went out to the lady at the restaurant. She said, "Oh, you should come on Monday. We're doing a party for the name day for the church across the street." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. It'll be fun." She goes, "Yeah, it'll be Greek dancing and stuff." I was like, "What time?" She said 10. I said, "Oh, so no kids?" And she goes, "No. What are you talking about?" I was like, "It's 10 o'clock. And she's like, "Yeah, it's all kids." I said, "But I have an 8-year-old. She looked at me like, "Huh?" And I was like, "Is that?" But that's, she said, "Yeah, we got there because we're American. We got there 2 hours early at 8 o'clock. Nobody showed up with their kids until 11. Nobody."
Yeah.
Okay. So they're not afraid to keep their kids up until 11 o'clock at night because that kind of thing matters. I'm just saying that we need to have more balance.
Yeah. And this is evidence for you guys. You know, I love bringing on very select guests and I share evidence within myself. This is pure, undeniable evidence that less is more, that the more fun you have, the more you relax and luxuriate and take in life, the more you can bring in. But it's the fear that, Rob, are you like, tell me, are you and Kim barely scraping by living this life in Italy?
No, we're not. And what we are doing is we're showing up to our entrepreneurial ventures much more empowered because we're rested, because we're clear, because we're happy, because we're engaging in things that are involving different parts of our brain as opposed to continually working where we're just barely getting through it. You know, listen, when you have a good relationship, your business gets better. When you're healthy, your business gets better. When you're connected to your family, your business gets better. When you're not, it's worse. So it's the opposite. It's literally the opposite. I am not, this is where people get very confused. The message isn't to give up. You're not, if you're listening to this show, they're entrepreneurs. They want to grind. They want to do it. That's not your problem. Your problem is you do too much of it. You're not taking any time for yourself. You're not going, it is not out of me and it'll never be out of me. But what I did was I added things to help me more with balance. You're never going to be perfectly balanced, but you get the idea.
When someone is thinking right now, God, I hear this, it's getting all my beautiful dopamine and dream receptors going. And I believe both of you guys, but you know what? Now's not a good time. You know, the kids are playing sports. I just spent all this money on a new roof. You know, the now's not a good time. What is your take on the now's not a good time? Because you and Kim could have said with having Sophia's now 8, right?
Yeah.
So she was about 6 at the time. You could have easily said, well, now's not a good time. We should have more money saved. We should wait till Sophia's older. What do you have to say about the now's not a good time?
It's kind of like this. If you talk to a parent, you ask them, when's the perfect time to have a kid? There is no perfect time. You just make a decision that you're going to have a kid and you're going to deal with the shit show that a kid is, right? I mean, it's just really what it is.
So, I don't have children. Yeah.
And I understand it. I understand it. You're speaking to a guy that's almost 57 years old.
Yeah, my dad had me at 50. So
it's a friend of mine said you're like a cop that gets shot right before he's about to retire. Are you out of your minds? So I get it. Look, this goes back to the thing I talked about earlier with values. It's another excuse. Make a decision. If this is something you want, make a decision and take action. You can talk all day long about how it's not a good time. You can talk all day long about how you don't have enough money. You can talk all day long about it must be nice. Well, you don't fucking want it then. Bottom line. Like, I'm too old to like cut to mince words. If you want it, you're going to figure out a way to fucking get it. Like, let's just be honest about it. The rest of it is just rhetoric. If there's a situation where you go like, oh my God, I had a death in the family, or I just filed for bankruptcy or whatever. Okay, I get it. But it's a bump, right? It's a bump. That doesn't mean you don't want it. It is never going to be the right time. Never. You make a decision and you take action.
I really feel right now, today is always a good time to go after the life that you really want. And you can really decide that like right now while listening to us. And then notice, oh my God, I'm dying. I'm so glad. I'm so glad this is on YouTube, which by the way, you guys, ProjectME TV, millions of you requested it. Have to watch this episode just for the fact of what Rob just did so casually. I'm dead. Meanwhile, it is not lost on me. Wait, hold that up. How American am I? People,
by the way, I got to tell you something interesting about this. This is another thing. Walking around the city, okay, obviously I live in Florence, so there's a lot of Americans that come visit Florence, right? So walking around, all of a sudden I started to notice that they're carrying these big water jugs.
Yeah, the Stanley mug. If I see one more of the
there's nobody who does it. And then I
it's like
realized
Italians drink water at all. Whenever I go to Europe, okay, I go to a market and I get, the big thing.
It's so weird.
That's not normal. Like that large water, like the large water there is used for the family for the week. Meanwhile, I'm walking around with it. Do they so not weird. Drink water? Like they don't drink water. They eat it mostly carbs, lots of caffeine, and usually cigarettes. And they're living longer. And there's no mass shootings.
It's crazy. It's crazy. The other thing with the coffee was I had this conversation with somebody, and he said, I just don't get the American coffee. I'm like, what do you mean you don't get it? He's like, I just don't understand it. Like I went to America and they walk around holding the coffee. And I said, okay, well, what's the difference? He said, the difference is that we go to the bar. They call it the bar, right? This is where barista comes from. They go to the thing, and the guy makes them an espresso, and he hands it to him, and we drink it at the bar. I'm like, well, why do you drink it at the bar and not carry it? He said, because it's made special for you in that moment, and it's meant to be drank, whatever the word is, right there. And I was like, oh. He said, it's not meant to be put into. He said, when I see in an American office where you have those brown cups of coffee that's sitting in the coffee thing, and it's been there since we would never have a pot of coffee that wasn't just made and just drank.
Let alone pumpkin spice flavored.
They can't understand it. It's candy. It makes they're like, what the whipped cream? Like they don't even know it's cake. They call it cake. What is that? Why are you eating with the whipped cream and the thing? And we
have to laugh at it, you guys. Like wherever you're from listening, every culture has like ridiculousness, but we have to laugh at our own stuff. This helps take like the shame and the blame and the guilt out of it. How about you call some bullshit on yourself from listening to this? Where have you kind of been bullshitting yourself? Maybe you're convincing yourself you need to be an entrepreneur because it seems like everyone's doing that. Maybe you need to maybe you're trying to convince yourself that you need to be with this certain type of person or take these certain types of trips because you had so much propaganda that you feel that's what's going to make you happier. Laugh at it and then go, okay, I'm going to call myself out with some grace and humor. And now ask yourself that question. You have 2 years left to live. What would you do? And then that follow-up question was, what would you do? And then why? And if you do a sales job on yourself, like Rob was selling himself on it, you go into a passionate sales job, there's an answer. But would you say if it ends up as like dead noise in your head, that's probably an indicator that you don't really want it that badly?
Yeah, you got to have a little self-awareness and know what you really want. And it's easy to keep up with the Kardashians and really, really say, he's got this and she's got that. And I saw it on Instagram, and just go inside your soul. Find out what lights you up, what makes you happy, and live in alignment with that, and you'll be happy.
If someone wants your direct help in navigating this, because that is their next action, right? Like they are torn, but your next action could be working with someone to help you lay out a plan and help you get to the root. Because for someone like me, I am so in my head. I personally have to have someone all the time on regular payroll that helps ask me different questions and gets me thinking differently and really expand me. And I know that you do life coaching and business coaching with this unique take on it. How can people reach out to you while you're busy having your cappuccinos and 3-hour dinners? Are you even available for hire?
It's so funny. The answer to your question is just you link my Instagram up there and they could just direct message me.
Okay, so it's in the bio. And go say hi to Rob. Go look. If you are desiring more travel or living somewhere, differently, like both him and his wife, they also have a podcast. It's the Fri-Date. And you guys have merged it, right? Where it's like Fri-Date Italia.
Yeah.
So go watch what you can see in real time. He's not just saying this because it sounds romantic and beautiful for the show or some marketing propaganda so he can make more money. Like I vouch for these people. They really live this way, and go immerse yourself with it, even digitally, to see what that's like.
Thank you. I'll tell you this. It's funny. Our mutual friend, Chris Harder, I said, sorry, man, it was a crazy day. I meant to call you back. I couldn't. He said, did you have an emergency charcuterie board? What happens?
Yeah. What is an emergency in Italy? Exactly.
It made me laugh.
Yeah. It's like, there was like a random celebration in the street and it took me longer to walk home. What could there possibly be?
Thank you for having me on. I always love doing these with you, and hopefully people got a lot out of this one.
Absolutely. You guys do this one thing. The first person that comes to your mind, that comes to your heart, that's been sharing dreams. It could be your partner, it could be a cousin, it could be a client that has constantly told you something they really, really want. And it might have even has gone on years now. Send them this episode. This could be the one thing that changed their life, because the episode number 296, when I had Rob on pre-Italy, and I want to thank you for that. Like,
thank you.
That changed my life. I don't know, it would have taken me a lot longer to give myself permission to be next to the ocean, which is exactly where I needed to be.
We're all connected.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
You got it.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please write a 5-star review on iTunes. Not only will this make me super happy, but it will allow more listeners to find our special show. Simply help me help others.